Welcome to the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner Prepcast, where we guide you through everything you need to know for your certification exam. Whether you're just starting or looking to refine your knowledge, this course will set you up for success. Brought to you by baremetalcyber.com. Let's get started. When we talk about security in the cloud, one of the first questions we should ask is, how do I know what actually happened inside my environment? In the world of Amazon Web Services, the answer comes through a service called AWS CloudTrail. CloudTrail records the history of every application programming interface call made in your account. An API call is simply a request to AWS, such as creating a new virtual server, deleting storage, or changing permissions. Just like a bank statement shows every transaction you've made, CloudTrail produces a log that documents each action inside your AWS environment. This history is foundational for both governance, which means oversight and accountability, and forensics, which is the process of investigating after something goes wrong. Think of CloudTrail as a security camera system for your AWS environment. Without it, you are essentially blind to what happened yesterday or even 5 minutes ago. Governance teams use these records to prove that operations follow company rules or regulatory frameworks. For example, if a compliance officer needs evidence that access changes were properly authorized, CloudTrail provides a trustworthy record. On the forensic side, imagine someone deleted an important database overnight. CloudTrail lets investigators trace back to the exact moment, identify which user account performed the action, and determine whether it was an accident or something malicious. This dual role makes CloudTrail indispensable to both daily operations and crisis response. A key point for beginners is that CloudTrail is not optional. It is automatically enabled for every AWS account. That means even if you never configure it, AWS still provides a basic level of logging so you are not left in the dark. However, relying on default settings is like buying a lock but never installing it on your door. To truly benefit, you need to customize trails, the term AWS uses for log collections, to match your organization's needs. In the rest of this episode, we will explore how to configure and interpret CloudTrail so it becomes a powerful tool for visibility, accountability, and protection. When CloudTrail records activity, not all events are the same. AWS divides them into two broad categories: management events and data events. Management events are actions that configure or manage resources, such as creating a storage bucket, launching a virtual server, or modifying identity permissions. These are often high-impact changes that alter the way your environment is structured. Data events, by contrast, capture direct access to the contents of a resource. For example, if someone uploads a file into an S3 bucket or invokes a function in AWS Lambda, those are data events. To make this distinction clearer, imagine your AWS account is a library. Management events are like decisions about how the library is organized, adding new shelves, assigning library cards, or moving sections around. Data events are the actions of patrons actually using the books, checking out, returning, or reading them in the building. Both types of records are important, but they serve different purposes. Management events help you understand how the environment is changing at a structural level, while data events reveal the fine-grained usage of specific resources. For beginners, one thing to note is that management events are automatically logged by default, while data events require you to explicitly enable them. Why the difference? Because data events can be extremely high in volume. A single storage bucket receiving thousands of uploads an hour could generate a flood of log entries, and that has cost and storage implications. Therefore, AWS lets you choose when and where to capture data events, ensuring you balance visibility with practicality. We'll revisit these cost considerations later, but for now, remember that management events show what changed, while data events show who touched the data. Another distinction within CloudTrail logging is whether you capture read-only events, write-only events, or both. A read-only event occurs when someone views or describes a resource without altering it. For instance, running a command to list the contents of a storage bucket or describe the properties of a server. These actions don't change anything, but they can reveal sensitive information. Write-only events, on the other hand, include creating, modifying, or deleting resources. Examples include creating a new user account, changing firewall rules, or deleting a database table. Because write events change the state of your environment, they are often considered higher priority to monitor. Why does this matter? Imagine an auditor wants to know not just who changed security settings, but also who reviewed them. A read-only event might show that a contractor was repeatedly viewing permissions without making edits. While they never modified anything, their curiosity might signal reconnaissance, which is a step attackers often take before striking. Conversely, write-only tracking ensures you don't miss critical actions like privilege escalation or destructive deletions. In practice, most organizations capture both read and write events for comprehensive oversight, but having the option gives flexibility in tailoring the scope of logging. A useful analogy is online shopping. Browsing products without purchasing is like a read-only action. Nothing changes in the store's inventory, but the system still records what was viewed. Actually adding an item to your cart or placing an order is a write-only action. The inventory and order history are modified. Both pieces of data are valuable. Browsing patterns show interest, while purchases reveal commitments. In AWS, logging both read and write events ensures you can reconstruct a full picture of user behavior, which is invaluable for audits, investigations, and overall system trustworthiness. AWS is a global platform, and your resources might span multiple regions. A region is a physical cluster of data centers in a specific geographical area, such as US East in Virginia or Asia Pacific in Tokyo. By default, CloudTrail captures events in a single region, but attackers and administrators alike are not confined to one. Multi-region trails allow you to log activity across all regions automatically, ensuring nothing slips through the cracks. Without this setting, you might have blind spots if, for example, a malicious actor creates resources in a less monitored region. Imagine a company headquartered in the United States but with development teams experimenting in Europe and Asia. If they only monitor logs in the US region, they might miss unusual activity abroad. Multi-region trails eliminate this gap by centralizing activity into one consistent record. This makes it far easier to enforce governance policies and conduct forensic investigations, because you are not piecing together partial histories from different regions. It also aligns with compliance standards that demand a complete record of activity, regardless of where it occurred. It's worth noting that enabling multi-region trails increases costs and storage usage, since more data is being collected. However, the trade-off is usually worthwhile, especially for organizations concerned about security and oversight. Think of it like installing cameras at every entrance of a building, not just the front door. You may spend a little more, but the peace of mind and thorough visibility outweigh the additional expense. For learners, the takeaway is simple. If you want reliable, organization-wide monitoring, multi-region trails are a best practice. Most organizations operate more than one AWS account. A development account might be used for testing, a production account for live systems, and a sandbox for experiments. CloudTrail can be configured individually in each account, but managing logs separately soon becomes cumbersome. Organization trails, available through AWS organizations, solve this by creating a centralized trail that spans all linked accounts. This ensures consistent governance and prevents gaps where one account is overlooked. Consider a real-world analogy, a retail chain with dozens of stores. If each store kept its own separate security camera system without central oversight, patterns of theft or suspicious activity could be missed. By unifying video feeds at a headquarters, managers can detect trends across all locations. In the same way, an organization trail consolidates CloudTrail logs, allowing security teams to see activity across development, production, and specialized environments in one place. This simplifies analysis and reduces the risk of attackers exploiting weaker accounts as entry points. Organization trails also streamline compliance reporting. Instead of proving to auditors that every individual account has its own logging configuration, you can show a single, organization-wide record. This not only saves time, but also strengthens your security posture by ensuring no account falls through the cracks. For learners new to AWS, the message is clear. When multiple accounts are in play, use organization trails to unify visibility and control. It's an essential step toward treating AWS environments as coherent systems rather than isolated silos. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. One of the most important uses of CloudTrail is detecting when the AWS root account has been used. The root account is the very first identity created when an AWS account is set up, and it has unlimited power to perform any action. Because of this, security best practice is to lock it down, use it only in emergencies, and rely on other users or roles for daily work. CloudTrail makes it possible to flag any time the root account performs an action, so administrators can immediately investigate why it was used. In a well-managed environment, seeing root usage in the logs should be rare, and alerts should be configured to notify security teams the moment it happens. Another powerful feature of CloudTrail is its ability to highlight sensitive application programming interface calls that deserve special attention. Certain services, such as the AWS Key Management Service, the Identity and Access Management System, or the simple storage service when buckets are made public, represent high-value targets for attackers. An unexpected API call to change encryption keys, elevate permissions, or expose data storage might signal a serious security event. By using CloudTrail logs to filter for these actions and generate real-time alerts, organizations can catch potential breaches at their earliest stages. This kind of monitoring is the digital equivalent of setting an alarm on a vault door rather than every drawer in an office. Because CloudTrail writes logs into Amazon's simple storage service, those records can be analyzed with query tools such as Amazon Athena. Athena lets you treat logs like a searchable database, enabling investigators to write queries that extract just the events they care about. For example, a team could search for all failed login attempts within the past 24 hours, or list every user who modified security groups during a maintenance window. Instead of scrolling through raw text files, Athena provides structure and precision, turning logs into actionable intelligence. For learners, this shows how CloudTrail data is not just recorded, but also made useful through integration with analytics services. CloudTrail data also fits into larger security information and event management systems, often called SIEE platforms. These platforms, such as Splunk or Elastic, collect logs from across an organization and provide correlation, dashboards, and automated detection rules. By feeding CloudTrail into a central SIEM, AWS activity becomes part of the bigger picture of enterprise security monitoring. That means suspicious patterns, like an unusual login followed by data access across multiple accounts, can be detected faster and investigated more effectively. This centralization is especially important for larger organizations where different teams or business units may be running separate AWS accounts. When dealing with multiple accounts, CloudTrail supports best practices for cross-account log aggregation. This simply means funneling all the logs into one central location, usually a dedicated security or audit account. Doing so prevents tampering because individual teams cannot easily alter or delete their own records. It also creates a single source of truth for investigators and auditors. Much like a company's finance department consolidates all branch office transactions into a master ledger, central log aggregation ensures consistency and reliability. Beginners should see this as a way of scaling trust, not just collecting information, but ensuring that it is preserved and accessible where it matters most. Cost management also becomes easier when CloudTrail logs are properly tagged. A tag is a simple key-value label that you can attach to AWS resources, such as project equals mobile app or team equals finance. By tagging your trails, you can break down logging expenses by project, department, or initiative. This matters because CloudTrail costs can rise sharply when data events are logged at scale. Without tags, everything might appear as one lump expense, making it hard to assign responsibility. With tags, managers can see which teams are generating the most logs and adjust strategies accordingly. This turns logging from a mysterious bill into a transparent, accountable investment. A concern with any security system is whether attackers could tamper with it. CloudTrail provides guardrails to prevent this. For example, logs can be configured with write-once settings, meaning that once they are recorded, they cannot be modified. You can also restrict permissions so that only a handful of trusted roles can change trail settings. These protections are crucial because the value of logs lies in their integrity. If an attacker can erase or alter them, the entire security investigation could be undermined. Think of it like sealing evidence in a tamper-proof bag. Once sealed, any attempt to interfere becomes obvious and suspicious. One way to control the scope and cost of data events is to limit which resources are logged. Instead of capturing every file access across every storage bucket, you might choose to log only a critical bucket containing sensitive financial data. Likewise, for AWS Lambda functions, you can select specific functions to track, rather than all of them. This scoping approach balances thoroughness with efficiency. It ensures that high-value targets are closely monitored, while less important or routine activity does not overwhelm the system. Beginners should understand that logging everything, everywhere, is not always practical. Thoughtful selection matters. During an incident, the timeline of events is everything. CloudTrail provides this timeline in precise detail, often down to the second. Investigators can reconstruct what happened step by step. Who logged in, what resources they touched, what errors occurred, and how the system responded. This evidence is invaluable in reducing response times, identifying root causes, and communicating with stakeholders. For example, if data was deleted, CloudTrail can confirm whether it was removed by accident, automation, or malicious intent. By speeding up the investigative process, CloudTrail shortens the time attackers can hide and reduces damage to the business. Compliance reporting is another area where CloudTrail shines. Many industries require organizations to prove that they are monitoring and securing their systems. Auditors often ask to see log history to confirm that sensitive actions were tracked and reviewed. With CloudTrail, these reports are straightforward to produce, showing exactly when actions occurred and by whom. Instead of scrambling to reconstruct a narrative from memory or partial records, teams can point to comprehensive, tamper-proof logs. This transforms compliance from a painful chore into a manageable, evidence-driven process. For learners, it highlights how logging is not just technical, but also a business necessity. CloudTrail logs also map directly to what are called detective controls. In security, there are preventative controls that stop bad things from happening, like firewalls, and detective controls that notice when something has already occurred. CloudTrail serves as a detective control by ensuring that no action goes unnoticed. When combined with alerts, dashboards, and automation, these logs become the eyes and ears of your AWS environment. They do not prevent a breach on their own, but they guarantee you will know about it, and that knowledge is the first step in any effective response. From an exam perspective, it is important to remember exactly what CloudTrail captures and why. It records API activity across AWS accounts, providing visibility into both management and data events. It can be customized by region, account, or resource, and integrates with other services for search, alerts, and analysis. Its value lies not just in the collection of data, but in what that data enables: governance, forensic investigation, compliance, and continuous monitoring. Learners should focus on understanding the purpose behind each feature, not just memorizing the terminology. Continuous improvement comes from periodically reviewing CloudTrail logs even when nothing bad has happened. By looking at routine activity, organizations can spot patterns, optimize configurations, and reduce noise in their alerts. For example, a team might notice frequent failed login attempts from a specific system and adjust its authentication methods. Or they might discover that a rarely used service is generating logs unnecessarily and shut it down to save costs. This proactive approach ensures that CloudTrail is not just an archive of past events, but a living tool that drives better security practices. In summary, CloudTrail is the backbone of accountability in the AWS cloud. It provides visibility into every significant action, from creating a resource to accessing sensitive data. It helps detect root account misuse, alerts on dangerous changes, feeds analysis tools, and supports compliance reporting. Most importantly, it creates an immutable history that investigators, auditors, and leaders can trust. For beginners, the lesson is clear. CloudTrail is not just another feature, but a foundation. Without it, you are essentially flying blind in the cloud. With it, you gain clarity, evidence, and control, the hallmarks of a secure environment. That concludes today's episode of the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner Prepcast. Be sure to tune in for the next episode and visit us online at baremetalcyber.com or cyberauthor.me for more resources, including news, mailing lists, YouTube videos, podcasts, and much more.